Hi guys. Alright, go ahead and put your name up here at the top, guys. In the right hand corner, put your name, period number, and then this is for 12.3. Okay? Alright, so what we're looking at today is writing equations from tables. Alright? So tables show the relationship between independent and dependent variables. Right? So just remember, independent variables affect the dependent variables. Alright? Really quick here. See if you guys can remember which axis does the independent variable go on, the x-axis or the y-axis? Well, if you said x-axis, you were correct for the independent, and the dependent goes on the y-axis. That's the y. Okay? So those are things you need to, two things you need to remember. Okay, so you can use a table to write an equation that shows the relationship between the variables. Okay? Alright, so here's an example here. Katie eats 2 more cookies than her friend Jamie. So when you look at this situation, you try to pick out what's my independent variable and then what's my dependent variable. So what is affecting the other thing? So is the amount of cookies that Katie eats affect the amount of cookies that Jamie eats, or does the amount of cookies that Jamie eats affect the amount of cookies that Katie eats? Well, read through this here. Katie eats 2 more cookies than her friend Jamie. So however many cookies Jamie eats, that's going to affect how many cookies Katie eats, right? Because Katie has to eat 2 more than Jamie. So my independent variable here is Jamie's cookies. However many she eats, then Katie's going to eat 2 more. So the dependent variable would be Katie's cookies. Okay, so you have Jamie's cookies affecting Katie's cookies, the amount of cookies. Alright, so when you look at these tables here, what you want to do is find, it says to write an equation from a table. What you want to do is find the pattern between x and y. Okay, you want to see what's going on between the x variable and the y variable. So how did you get from 1 to 3? Alright, what did you do to that? Well, you added 2. How did you get from 2 to 4? Once again, you added 2. How did you get from 3 to 5? Once again, you added 2. Okay, so there's our pattern. We're adding 2 every time. Is the pattern the same for all? Yes. Okay. Yes. Alright, so what you want to do is, it says write the relationship between x and y in an equation. So whenever they ask you to write an equation from a table, you're always going to start out with y. Okay? So what was the same for all values? Okay, so what we can say here is you add 2. You add 2 to each x, or I'm sorry, to x each time. I'm going to change this here a little bit. You add 2 to x each time to get y. okay? And that's what you're looking for in the table. You're looking for the pattern. So my equation is y. What did I do to y? Basically, you want to see how did I get to y, but what did I do to the x to get to y? So on this one, you need an x, and then you need to figure out what you're doing to the x each time to get to y. So on this table up here, my equation, you always want to start with y equals, and then on the other side you're going to have to show what you're doing to the x to get to the y. So this one, it's just x plus 2 because we're adding 2 every time. Alright? So that means whatever I put in here for my x, I'm going to add 2 to that, and that's going to tell me what my y value should be. So if you look at these, and we go ahead and put 1 in there, that's 1 plus 2 is 3. That's true. My y is equal to 3. If I put 2 in for the x here in this equation, 2 plus 2 is 4. Well, is y 4? Yes. If I put 3 into this equation, 3 plus 2 is 5, and then is my y 5 there? Yes, it is. So this equation works for this table. Okay? That's what you have to be able to do. There's problems on the test that deal with this, okay? So you guys have to know how to be able to do this. Alright, so let's flip the page over here. Okay, so you can write equations from graphs. And we have an example here. Betty makes a t-shirt to sell. The graph below shows how much t-shirts cost her to make. Okay? So this is saying you want to make a table with the ordered pairs and determine the rule. Okay? So let's start out with, here's my x values down here. These are x values, right? And these are y going up the side there. So if I have an x value of 2, what's my y value? 4, right? You see where I'm finding this? Here's my x value of 2. If I go up, that's 4. So my y value is 4. What's the rule? Well, let's fill in a few more of these, and then we'll see if we can figure out what the rule is. Okay? So if my x value right here is 4, what's my y value? 7. I'm sorry. That's okay. I see what they're doing. They're counting by 2s here. 2, 4, 6, 8. Even though the 8, it kind of looks like this is the 8 up here. This is the 8 right here. So this is 4. My x value is 4. My y value is 8. All right. Then let's go to the third dot here. My x value is 6. My y value is, and that should be, well, I'll count by 2s here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. They numbered it a little weird, but this is 12. So I got 6, 12. So the rule basically is they're asking you, what do you do to the x to get to the y? So let's see here. You could think about addition. Am I adding 2 every time? Well, I add 2 to 2 and I get 4, but if I add 2 to 4, I get 6, so I'm not adding 2 every time. You could try multiplying. If I multiply 2 by 2, I get 4. If I multiply 4 by 2, I get 8, and 6 by 2, I
get 12, so my rule is multiply by 2. Okay, so my equation, y is equal to, what am I doing to x every time to get to y? We just said I'm multiplying by 2. So how do you show 2 times x? Well, you can just write it as 2x. Okay? Alright, 2x. That's my equation. Remember, you always start with y. So what I want you guys to do, you guys are gonna practice a little bit here. You have to come up with an equation. Okay? So you have to look at these tables and try to figure out what's going on. You write the equation, so you're always going to start out with y is equal to, y is equal to, y is equal to. Okay?
you come up with the equation. Then down here, you're going to come up with an equation. Y is equal to, you're going to tell what is the rule to get from x to 3. What are you doing every time to x to get to y? To get from x to y. So you're going to have your x values. I would just use the values of the x's on the dots. So you'd use, well, you could always start out with 0. Okay? At 0, that would be 3. So you can always start with 0, 3 here. And then go ahead and use the 2 value for x, the 6, and the 10. And tell what your y's are, and then figure out what you did to get from x to y. Alright? So work on this a little bit. Think about it. They don't always come, you can't always see it right off the bat. Sometimes you got to analyze it a little bit and think about it. But go ahead and do this. Once you come up with your equations and figure this out, go ahead, show me. I'll come around and check and see if you guys are doing this correctly. Okay? All right. Thanks for listening.